I'm Greg, and I appreciate you guys being here tonight. One thing I do want to note: every year, Divine Mercy Care raises $1.5 million a year in order to serve the underserved that Tepeyac sees. Tepeyac has been seeing, I think it's a 30% increase in the amount of women in need that need prenatal and delivery care. And so we've seen an overall increase in our numbers because of our facilities as well as our renown. The quality of care obviously is superior to all others. My wife was in fact on the video as a true patient. I don't know if I'm breaking any HIPAA laws, but she was just on multimedia. So, she comes back from it and says, this is our sixth child, and she said I'm treated like royalty. I'm treated like royalty, and it's always nice to hear that when your family, your life, your livelihood, really, everything that you care about, every reason why you work, goes to a place that says we respect you and we love you. And I love the quote from Dr. John, and I'll preface my love for the quote from Dr. Anderson to say that the opposite of, and he's quoting Pope John Paul the Great. He says, Saint Pope John Paul. He says, the opposite of love is use. That's what John Paul says. The opposite of love is use, right? And so if you truly love something, it's not transactional, right? It's sacrificial. And my favorite quote from this video, and it was my inspiration for the announcement on Facebook, was Dr. Anderson's quote where it says, the life inside of you changes you forever. Parents want to be with their children. And there couldn't be anything with a more pregnant pause other than that, right? It's to say that parents want to be with their children. And that is both by nature and by love. And we're designed for both, right? We're made in the image of likeness of God, who is love. And so there's a great message here. And let me just read Dr. Anderson's bio if you don't know it. So Dr. Anderson received her medical degree from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. in 1989 and completed her OBGYN residency at George Washington University in 1993. She has been board certified since 1995 and joined Tepeyac in 1997 as a second doctor, right? So it was Dr. John and then it was you. So Dr. Anderson is truly foundational to Tepeyac. Dr. Anderson's passion is to take part in miracles. It is a privilege for her to witness birth, to care for women, and to feel that she has helped someone. She looks to the Lord as the divine healer for wisdom, knowledge, skill, and the judgment to put all those gifts to use, helping each one of his children, that is the Lord's children. Her joy does not stop in the delivery room because she relishes all aspects of caring for women, loves the challenges of assessing and treating women's health concerns through all stages of her life. So not just OB care, we're talking about GYN care too. And Dr. Anderson strives to make a difference and to experience personally the miracles that do happen in her ministry and her medicine. Dr. Anderson is the president of the Northern Virginia chapter of the Catholic Medical Association, so she's like a really big deal. And without further ado, Dr. Anderson, thanks.
Greg, you're so kind. Thank you very much. And in all, I am a person, and that's really what I want to talk to you about tonight, is what makes Tepeyac different than the rest. Greg referred to the thought that we at Tepeyac are more well known for the things we don't do than maybe for the things we do. And really, the devil's in the details. And we have developed things at Tepeyac, ways of doing things, ways of treating patients that I think are far superior to what the rest of the world uses to treat patients. We realize we have this awesome advantage because we realize the value of a person. We know they're unique, they're unrepeatable, and they are given worth, really, by God. He gives us worth. Our worth does not depend on somebody else's opinion. It is steadfast. It's a gift that God has already given us. And so we at Tepeyac realize that. I keep thinking I'm getting a feedback here. we realize that, and we go to each person and try to establish a one-on-one relationship, recognizing that we are both, each of us is unique and unrepeatable, and we need to respect that and respect each other. And that is the center of where we come to meet patients where they are and help them in any way that we can. So I want to also emphasize that we do state-of-the-art medicine in terms of excellent medical care. I think our biggest challenge is that we need to be in the world, but not of the world. And so we carefully try to match our strengths and our mission to the patients who come to us. We are very open about saying what we believe in, the type of medicine that we practice, and we hope that that helps patients who feel that they match well with us to come and seek our help. The other side of that is that we don't want to thrust our beliefs on someone, because medicine, a doctor and a patient, that is not an equal relationship. One person is coming to the other for help, and we want to help them. We don't want to use a time when maybe someone's not well to take advantage of that situation in any way. So we want to be welcoming. We want to stay up with practice, with latest advances, and then take that and filter it through what our beliefs support. And in all honesty, that gives us the best of all worlds, because having God at our side and using the divine healer as our model is probably the best thing there is in this world, is to live in the steps of Christ. So while we learn the techniques and all of those things, we realize that at the end of the day, we're working with one of God's children, and we need to respect that. Now, I know that my primary topic tonight is to speak about the perinatal hospice, but I wanted to give you a broad idea of the other things that we do at Tepeyac, because, as Greg said, we care for women of all ages, and we do that in a way that is hopefully helpful to them, fits into both their conscience and ours, and the bottom line is that medical care is very scientific, but it needs to be administered with prudence and judgment. So let me go through different groups of patients that we commonly see at Tepeyac, and just sort of an idea of how we go to each person in each group. So, as I said, we always respect the fact that we are working with a child of God. And let me just kind of weave a story through a person's life. And so the adolescence, as girls become women, we find that's a very vulnerable portion of a woman's life. And we often will see girls maybe as they are going off to college. We often will give a pep talk in terms of respect your body. God has given it to you. He has placed it in your care and entrusted that with you. And so you need to respect that and care for it. And that means realize your self-worth. Realize you're a child of God. Realize there are proper ways to treat your body. And that includes your relationships. It means avoiding drugs, alcohol, things that are obviously harmful, but be careful who you associate with, who you form relationships with, especially if there is a sexual element to that, because things need to come in the proper order and time. And to take things out of order means that you may not become the person God intended you to be. You need to nurture that. That comes with some effort on our part. And so we walk the girls through that in terms of expectation and respect. And to cherish their virginity and to realize it's a gift, it's not a curse, and to know that they can come to us if they have questions or problems. Many girls have period cramps or other problems gynecologically. We work them through that. We apply the proper medical standards, treatments, evaluations. And so that in that way, we're very similar to the outside world. But what we do with that information is very different. We see so many girls that no matter what's wrong with you, we got a fix for that. We'll just put you on birth control pills. And so we don't believe that way. We tease out, is there a deficiency? Is there something that's lacking in terms of their supplements or their diet? Many girls simply just don't ovulate. They don't have a functional cycle right away. It takes a while for that pituitary ovarian axis, the communication between the brain and the ovaries, to mature. And so maybe we just need to give them some progesterone support in cycles so that we can normalize their period and help them to transition to the next stage. And then realize also that nothing is forever. There's a time where we do a drug holiday, maybe take something away that we've given that we thought they needed, so that we always give God that opportunity to say, I got this now, you don't need to be doing what you're doing, let's move to the next stage. So it's this give and take and communication, always keeping an ear to God because He talks to us. Greg said, Dr. Anderson really enjoys being part of a miracle, seeing miracles. And Tepeyac is a place where miracles happen. And it is so joyous. It just is, because the last thing we want to do is stop God from performing a miracle. And sadly enough, we as humans are very capable of doing that. We want to be open. And if He wants to make a miracle, let Him. And that's all I have to say about that. It speaks for itself. So the next stage in a woman's life where we often will see girls is as they are preparing for marriage. And this is a time of education. Many girls have worked with natural family planning. If they haven't, we talk about the benefits of it. We guide them in that direction. As they learn and they begin to chart, they begin to have questions. Really they're unlocking the secrets of their body. They are learning the owner's manual, if you will, for a woman's body. God puts all of these wonderful signs and developments and processes in our bodies, and we can go through all of life without ever noticing them. We can miss the whole owner's manual and miss out on so much benefit. And so we help them to learn, what is my body saying? What is it saying that it needs? Is it okay? Is it not okay? We find so much information just in their observations, and then we can follow that up with the medical piece. And it makes a wonderful team to have not only the observations, but then the techniques of medicine, the imaging studies, the blood tests, all of those things. But the reason that we order those things is because of what the girls are observing and the reasons that they come in, the communication. And then, we always have to keep that ear to the Lord. Pray before you meet the patient, pray with the patient, pray after the patient leaves, because to miss that is to miss the best part. And it's always a balancing act. It's beautiful to see. We have a big presence in the world of infertility in our office. We do springboards out of the NFP observations and treatments, and that marries in very well, especially with Dr. Svetkovich, Dr. C's programs. She trained with Dr. Hilgers for a while. She worked with him, and she has an enthusiasm about her for natural family planning. And then she has brought techniques from medicine to match when it goes past just observations, when there needs for treatment, maybe fertility drugs, maybe surgery. She tends to not try to cover things up with birth control pills and the like. If there's something to be investigated or corrected, then surgery sometimes is a better choice, and then move on and try to get pregnant. She does use fertility treatments, drugs and the like. But we're not doing anything with IVF, anything that takes God's place. We simply want to highlight the fertility that a woman has and tweak it so that the desired result is obviously to have a family. We want to help in that process. We don't want to block God out of the picture. And that's what IVF does and many of the other related processes. So here again, we are noted for what we don't do, but what we do have is even better than what we see in general practice and in the rest of the world. And we feel so passionately about that we go out on a limb and we say, you know what, this is the best treatment for us to provide and for people of faith to receive, because it allows God in the picture. It allows God in the picture. And we don't hinder anything. We simply help him in little tweaks here and there. All right, so now we're up to pregnancy, and we have a very large OB population. We do standard of care, we do the routine testing, we have the happy OB appointments. It's just a joyful time, and I simply love sharing that joy with the OB patients. But some of them are sick, some of them become sick. Pregnancy strains and stresses the human body. You're literally growing another person. And so any underlying medical problems, pre-existent, we need to keep in mind and under surveillance. Sometimes we need to prescribe medicine, sometimes treatments. But pregnancy is a very special time, but sometimes there is medical treatment that is indicated. A woman who develops diabetes, we instruct her on diet and how to live a healthy diet and a healthy life. Sometimes we need to give them medicine, though. And if that's indicated, that's what we do. If it is more complicated than that, we have an excellent relationship with several of the specialists, the maternal fetal medicine specialist in the area, and they understand I don't want to call it an agenda, our hopes and our way of practicing. And they present the medical options, but they keep in mind that where that person has come from is Tepeyac, and that please be open to hearing the patient when presented with possible treatments. And so, I have often heard that some of the advice given to newlywed couples is it takes three to marry: a man, a woman, and God. And so when we treat patients, we have a doctor, a patient, and God is still key in that relationship. Sometimes, though, in pregnancy, there can be a poor prenatal diagnosis. And I think this is the meat of the talk that I plan to give tonight. In all honesty, our daughter was in a fatal motor vehicle accident when she was 25, and the grieving that I experienced with that time in my life was very hard. I learned things about myself I had no idea were there. And so sometimes it takes being stressed out, having a major loss, a major change in your life, to reach down and find how strong you are and how strong your faith is. And so that then led me to become the director of the perinatal hospice. And the situation is very different in the details, in that she walked out of the house one day and never came back. Whereas women in our perinatal hospice learned about a poor prenatal diagnosis partially the way through the pregnancy. Many of them at the 20-week ultrasound will find abnormalities that are characteristic of a baby with a very short life expectancy, maybe will die during pregnancy, many in the delivery room. Some the suspicion is raised earlier with some of the new testing now. There is the cell-free DNA, there's the nuchal translucency sonogram. There are earlier and earlier attempts to identify babies that have major abnormalities, and the outside world looks for those things so early so that if a woman wants to have an abortion, having not told anyone, her family, her friends, she can discreetly, quietly go off and have an abortion. Our goal is to find that information and realize that this patient is going to need support. She's going to need people praying for her. We need to do further testing to make sure that our suspicions are correct. And then we welcome them into a special portion of our practice, which is the perinatal hospice. And we don't treat babies like garbage, which is the message the outside world has sent to them. This baby is imperfect. We don't expect the baby to survive. So get rid of the baby so you can try again. Well, that's 180 degrees away from the way we practice. We realize that, as Greg said, parents want to be with their children, especially when they're sick. And parents want to parent. And so the overriding goal of the perinatal hospice is to move that parenting period from childhood into the care of a person in the womb. And so we ask our patients to realize they're making decisions for their children. They're really raising them up to their full potential before they're born. And chief among the ways they do that is to allow them to live. In this world, sadly enough, one of the most dangerous places on the planet is to be an imperfect baby in a woman's womb, and to have her know about that. Our scientific advances have helped us in many ways, but hurt us in many, and this is one. So we, in our hospice, officially enroll the woman, and if she has family that wants to join in the process, we interview them. We ask them things like, what's important to you? Please consider naming this baby. This is the life you're going to spend. You're going to spend this life together. Name the baby so that you can call the person by name. And then think of, what is that baby doing today? Is the baby kicking? Is the baby moving? Notice the good, because many of these children, while they're in the womb, they don't know sin. They have everything they need. They don't even have to breathe. They don't have to eat. Mom does everything for the baby. And we ask her to enjoy knowing that she's doing that for her child. And there's a special bonding. We do extra sonograms so that she can see her baby and her family. Maybe their other older siblings can bond with the baby through some of the wonders of modern medicine. The sonograms now are so, if any of you have seen them or been invited to a baby sonogram, they are really realistic looking, especially the 3D, 4D ones. And you can see the baby moving. Daddy can see it just like mommy. And so we move through the routine care of OB care, but we always have it from that perspective of love, and that this is a child of God, and this is your time together, and enjoy it. I can't say enough about enjoying the life of a child. That is something that is a gift, and eventually the challenges of a difficult pregnancy with a poor prenatal diagnosis, eventually it comes back in terms of realizing the graces that have come with that baby. Babies don't come to us in isolation. They come wrapped in all kinds of layers of grace and joys. I don't know that many people, parents of babies who have a poor prenatal diagnosis, I don't know that they reach happiness, but they certainly do reach joy. And as you all know, joy is a gift of the Holy Spirit. And when I work with these people, I see that joy. And I know it's not the giddy happiness that we often see. This is pure joy. It is just an inner knowledge that they are growing up a child for God. He's asked them, He's given them this very special assignment, and they're doing the best they can with it. And that's all any of us ever do, is the best we can with life. So the last thing I'd like to say more or less about the advice for the perinatal hospice patients is I remind them that it's not about how long we live. It's about the way we touch people in our lives and what legacy will we leave behind. I think of this story that happened very early on when I first joined Dr. Buchalski. This girl was 17. She'd gotten pregnant out of wedlock. She went home and told her parents, and they promptly threw her out of the house. Literally, she took the clothes on her back, a little knapsack, and that was it. That pregnancy initially tore up that whole family. There were people on each side. They weren't speaking to each other. I don't know of many of them that were speaking to her. But she persisted, and I could see that she was being directed by a higher level, that she was, whether she realized it or not, she was doing what God was asking of her. And so she found help who brought her to Tepeyac. We accepted her as a patient. We got her big sister type of support. Some of the parishes provided things like finding her a place to live for the rest of the pregnancy. She came in labor, and we delivered her son. And it was an early delivery. He had trisomy 18, which means his 18th chromosome had 3 chromosomes instead of 2. He was expected to pass away in the delivery room, but he didn't. He survived. During her hospitalization, he initially was weak and had the abnormalities, the visual ones that we could see. But that little guy was a fighter, and he persisted, and he survived, and we realized that we needed to be planning for him to go home. And then out of the blue one day, he was doing fine, and all of a sudden he turned blue and he stopped breathing. And this young woman just realized that she couldn't part with him yet. And so she took him from here to here, and she just started going, God, please, not yet. Don't take him yet. I'm not ready. And in that, she gave him CPR, not knowing it. And she brought him back, and he began breathing, and his blue turned pink, and he eventually went home. We had the Capital Region Hospice follow up with him. He lived for 2.5 months, and then he passed away quietly in his mother's arms. And in that time, He healed that entire family. Her parents accepted her back. She moved back into the home, and it is amazing what he left behind in his short little life. It was beautiful to see, and 20 years ago, I am still remembering it and talking about it. There have been others that came close, but I think this is the most profound, immediate response that I have seen. And I just feel so fortunate to be part of Tepeyac and part of the perinatal hospice. I was taught in residency, check your faith at the door. Don't bring that here. It is not something that we bring to medicine. And I can tell you that when I completed that residency, I was anxious and I was restless and I didn't know why. But later I figured out why with the help of being at Tepeyac and self-realization, prayer, guidance from others at Tepeyac. And I realized if you're a doctor and you think everything depends on you, you're going to be stressed and restless in a lot of things because you're going to be overwhelmed. That expectation is superhuman. To be a doctor of faith means we do what we can do, we help where we can help, we apply the practice of medicine, but in the end, we treat, but it's God who heals. And to humble ourselves and take that role is the best thing we can do, both for us and for the patient. And then we realize, we have to turn it over to Christ. He's the one that has that power, and He's the one that graciously and gladly shares it with us and showers us with it. And our role then is to say thank you. I went to Mass for a little while tonight before I came here, and the homily was about the lepers, curing the lepers. And only one of them went back to thank our Lord, and 9 of them didn't. And so, we need to be grateful to our God because of what He does for us and with us and through us. And, this is the best job in the world, and I love it every day. Some days are harder than others, as Greg said, but at the end of the day, I am so fortunate, and I realize how fortunate I am, and I'm so glad to be at Tepeyac. So that's pretty much what I have to say, and if you have questions, some areas maybe that I didn't touch that you're interested in, I'd be happy to go there. So, who wants to go first? Don't make me call on you.
I'll say something. I went to Dr. Wachowski, if I said that right.
We call him Dr. B because
Okay.
there are many pronunciations, I'm sure. B is pretty safe.
Okay, well, from the get-go, he was the only doctor at that time. And it was so bizarre to have a doctor sitting there talking to you about God.
Mm-hmm.
Really bizarre. And I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you came in, you were second, and so then I moved on to a female gynecologist. It was a great experience.
Well, thank you for saying that. Thank you. We just have to acknowledge that God wants to help us, and He is there. And He is a major part of medicine. He was the original divine healer. And we gain so much by trying to just imitate what He did. It's amazing. So thank you. Anybody else?
Just a quick question. The Vitae Foundation, with whom Divine Mercy works for its website and its national consortium, has done some research on a woman's brain when she becomes pregnant in a time that is either inconvenient or scary. and they've likened it to the equivalent of being in a burning building, and some people saying, I'm going to come in and rescue you, or there are people outside saying, why don't you just jump from the second floor, you may only break your leg, but you'll at least save your own life, right? I say that to preface this question. What do you say to a patient that may be in a situation where they may have wanted this child, or may not have wanted this child, right? Or they're confused about kind of where they're at in that decision. Or they get a diagnosis that is going to require them to be part of the perinatal hospice. What is the conversation that happens in those circumstances?
So at the perinatal hospice level, I think I'm most familiar with that. And my son was a volunteer fireman for a while, so he might be a little better to ask about jumping out of a burning building. I'm not quite sure about that. I know they do trainings and things like that. And if they get 3 fires out of a car, that's a good day because they put it out fast enough to burn it 3 times. So we'll just stick to the perinatal hospice if it's okay with you. So I say that God has sent you this child. He custom made this child for you. And I don't know what his goal is, and you probably don't either. I know it's shocking to be thinking everything is going along well, and then suddenly, for whatever reason, be it a test, be it a sonogram, for whatever reason, we discover that things are not what we would hope, and that all of a sudden, you're going to be taking a detour. There's actually a poem that has to do with someone taking a trip to Rome, and they're going to see the Colosseum and St. Peter's and all of these wonderful things in Rome. And then on the runway, the pilot says, okay, so we're on our way to Amsterdam. And it's a complete different focus of what is coming and how can we prepare for that. And the poem goes on to say, well, in Amsterdam, there are tulips, there are windmills, there are wonderful things to see. And that is the part that we try to emphasize when we talk to parents. And we try to talk to the entire family, at least the parents themselves, and point out that there are wonderful things that they can gain from this pregnancy. We just had one of our perinatal hospice patients that we awarded the Susan Torres Award to because of their way of handling the challenges of a baby with trisomy 13. And it was beautiful to hear. The father got up and said, our son never had a birthday party, never had a graduation, never had a wedding, and so we're going to do all that tonight. I want this night to be in remembrance of Matthias. And so that man has been given so many gifts from his son who lived 57 minutes outside of the womb, and we tried to say, in those 57 minutes and the months that preceded it, this baby will change you forever. And if you allow God to do his work, he has started this. He has sent you this gift because he knows what he wants to do with it. We don't know. We have no idea what his goal is. But you can delve into that, go to prayer, and find out what your next step is. He may just lead you one step at a time, but that's what he does. That's what he does. He asks us to trust him. And so a lot of times the advice is trust. Trust God will get you through this. He has sent you here to us to provide you medical care to the extent that human beings can do that. But in the end, he has a plan. And he knows that he's doing this for your good. Sometimes parents are the last ones to know that, and we point that out to them. Let him work in you. Of course, we want to be prudent. We want to discover things that may harm you. And in the end, if there is something that is an obstetric indication for delivery, we get the mother and the child as far as we can get them in that pregnancy. And if it becomes time to deliver the baby because of danger to mom's health, we don't hesitate to do that. That is in God's plan. That is something, He sent that condition to her. And He's all-knowing. He knows that if we find certain things that we know are threatening, preeclampsia is a big one. We can try putting a mother on bed rest, and we can try limiting activity, changing the diet, doing all of these things. But in the end, if she's swollen, her blood pressure is going up, we don't want her to stroke. We don't want her to have a seizure. There are things that we need to do to treat that condition. And so we do. But we do it out of love, and we do it out of love for both the mom and the baby. And we are simply trying to give the best medical care to that couple that we can. And so that's the picture I try to paint at the beginning of the perinatal hospice journey. And it is a journey. And we do. We ask personal questions. What are your hopes? What are your hopes? I don't know very many other doctors that ask patients that question when they have a baby with trisomy 18 or trisomy 13. They're more about, let's get rid of this child, rather than what do you hope to get out of this experience, and how can we help you in that regard? So, any others? Yes?
I just want to say I feel so blessed to live in this area and have you guys and your support. I've got 2 daughters, and I'm so glad they can see you. But how many Tepeyacs are across the country? I remember when I was going through Catholic infertility, I remember I Googled it, and only you popped up, and Dr. Hildreth popped up in Omaha, and I saw Dr. B here, and then I went out to Omaha and came back here and finally became pregnant. But I just met so many women all over the country, and these were the only 2 options. And I was lucky that you guys were right here. But I just wonder, how do we grow Tepeyac? Are there other places like this across the country in major cities? Because you're a gem. I mean, so many women need you.
Yeah.
And
So funny you should ask that question. We are beginning the program with PWHC, and I think Greg actually knows more about that than I do, because there are 8 centers across the country now, and there may be more recently, but I'm aware of 8. And we are trying to form an alliance, and I will let Greg take it from there.
Yeah, do you want me to say a few words?
Yes, would you please?
Yeah, sure.
'cause that's fairly new, right? 'Cause
We're always doing something new at Tepeyac.
oh, that's right.
Dr. Anderson, thank you so much. And I'm not going to steal the whole question and answer period, but I do want to make, I guess, some sort of explanation / plug for it. PWHC is a premeditated name, and it's an acronym standing for Pro Women Healthcare, being one word, Center. So Pro Women Healthcare Center. And the origin behind that is that so many people have come to Tepeyac and asked Dr. John and Dr. Fisk and Dr. Anderson to say, hey, can you guys franchise your brand? Can you guys take this and replicate it? And the answer to that was no, but it was perhaps a better answer. It was, well, let me tell you how you can operate in the way that we do without losing your autonomy. Because one thing that we also value, one thing that Tepeyac also values, and the reason why DMC exists, is to keep Tepeyac as an independent doctor's office, okay? And what that means from the business healthcare perspective, or the healthcare business perspective, is that we don't have to join an MSO, we don't have to join a management service organization, and we don't have to take government grant funds. We'll take Medicaid, Medicare, but that's the only reason why we do that is to help the poor who receive those funds in order to accept that and report that to the federal government. So that's the only reason why we take that money. But we're very independent, we're fiercely independent in the fact that we want to be able to control ourselves. We want our doctors to be our administrators. and as well as Farah, of course, who's our practice administrator. And so what Dr. B has done is created both ethical and medical standards by which these PWHCs need to then operate. And so by creating these medical and ethical standards by which they need to operate, right, there's expectations, so those are the expectations, and then there's accountability. And so the way that these PWHCs get certified, right, it's a cum laude society really for pro-life medical practitioners, pro-life medical OBGYNs, right? And we say medical and we say independent fiercely because the background of that is that pro-life medicine, when you say pro-life medicine, I have a lot of pro-life friends that live in places like foreign countries like Massachusetts, who
Hey, my husband's from there.
I know, I grew up I grew up near, go Pats, okay?
Tom, terrific, yeah.
Although Dr. Anderson's a Cavs fan, I was a Cavs fan when I was younger. Anyway, that is
Come back.
PWHC. Because all the good Bruins players back in the 80s were going to the Cowboys. Anyway, but PWHC is an organization that now replicates that throughout the country. And from an accountability standpoint, we actually there's a board of medical administrators and doctors from around the country, Arizona, Florida, Omaha, I believe, Minnesota, and they go around and they certify these centers. And they say, and they'll do things as nitpicky and as granular as like cold call them and ask for a referral for an abortion. They'll call the front desk and say, hey, listen, I know you guys will do this, but can you refer me to somebody? And we'll evaluate these various organizations on that. And our goal is to have one of these in each state. And our goal would be, our monetary goal is to underwrite, right, a doctor's salary so we can steal someone like Dr. Anderson to talk about pro-life medicine and bring her around the country, okay, and really spread the word on what pro-life medicine is. When I went down to UVA, just as a side note, I went down to UVA and I asked these students, these younger students, Catholic, pro-life, okay, Christian, right, and I said, when I say pro-life politics, what does that mean? They said, Brett Kavanaugh, Republican, okay. When I say pro-life religion, well, Catholic, okay, Orthodox Christian, okay, good. I said, when I say pro-life, when I say pro-life medicine, the two answers that these kids who are faithful to this, they said, one girl said pregnancy resource center. I said, okay, fine, that's a good start, right? They do a lot of great work. They save the life of the child. They get them into the OB, okay? And then one young man said, limited. And I said, it's interesting you say that. He goes, we don't have, and he said to me, he said, you follow that up with, we don't have the answer to the pro-choice, traps, rhetorical traps they put us in. And I said, you're false. I said, that's wrong. I said, we do. And I said, I have 5 doctors that I can introduce you to, right, that have an answer for the pro-choice method of taking care of, for instance, a child with a trisomy 18 diagnosis, okay? There is a way to dignify both the child and the mother, right? And so to take that and replicate it and say, you know what, we do have an answer. There is no perceived, we live in a culture that I think perceives Planned Parenthood as some sort of pedestal, right, in women's care. That's a marketing ploy, and a lot of their marketing is based off the lies that Dr. Bernard Nathanson, right, in New York, told the country in order to promote abortions in New York, which he then recanted on his deathbed, right? And so it's like, well, we have doctors who've been practicing this for 25 years. We have the answer, but now we have to then get it. So that's what the PWHC we're taking Tepeyac and we're trying to replicate it because the standard of medicine is very, very high. What we do is better. And how we do it is better. And we need to tell people that. And so that's my billboard for Tepeyac.
And thank you. And it's all true.
That's right, it's all true.
And I know it from the inside out.
I'm a fundraiser too, so we'll have to have a
Well, and this kind of feeds into something else that is a goal at Tepeyac, and that is educating. We want to educate the new generation coming up, so there will be more doctors and more physician's assistants, and any aspect of healthcare, Catholic healthcare, should have an equal stake in that. So, for example, one of the PWHC medical centers, OBGYN, is a doctor who once did an externship at Tepeyac. He spent a month with us when he was a resident in OBGYN, And now he has a practice that is within the PWHC. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. And he's a wonderful young man. And we saw it in him when he was still in residency. And sure enough, he went out and he set up his own practice. He started from nothing, just like Dr. B did. And he is totally pro-life. So, you know, that has been a very important part of our Tepeyac mission for the whole trip, has been educating the next generation. And there have been many others that have come. And they've gone into all aspects of medicine, many of them into advanced training, laparoscopy. One of them went into, he's a laparoscopist in OBGYN. So, you know, we see that we have launched these little ships and helped to form them along the way, and they have done wonderful things for Catholic medicine.
We get 8 certified, and we have about 20 more in the pipeline. And it's actually a pretty prestigious accomplishment to then have received that PWHC seal of approval. It's pretty rigorous. Our doctors, because of the way they practice, they've become experts in complicated cases. And so we need to find doctors and medical providers that match that skill level, and that's a hard thing to do.
Well, that's kind of what we do at Tepeyac, because if you think about it, if there's one cure for whatever ails you, you just have to know about that one cure. And so many times the general GYN world just puts everybody on birth control pills. And so we see each person as unique and unrepeatable, and that's quite a gift. But it also means we need to be able to treat many conditions that are in many different stages, and the bulk of our patients they haven't been put on birth control pills and just suppress their own system, and so we have to think more and have critical thinking to figure out how can we augment without suppressing and just putting everything under a rug with suppression. How can we light-handedly go in and just tweak each aspect to get the person to a state of health? So, do I need to auction? Yes.
Are there other aspects of healthcare, other doctors that feel the same way you do, as far as the bringing back the hospitalers or the Catholic hospitals?
I know that in Arlington, the Diocese of Arlington, we don't have a Catholic hospital. I don't think we've ever had one here. So in some sense, makes it even more important for us to bring that to our office. I know when I first joined Tepeyac, I had been teaching the residents at Fairfax. And so when I deepened my faith and I wanted to share that with them, they were not interested in what I had to say. And so that was a big part of why we developed such an education program within our office, because we couldn't go there, so we invited people to come here, to come to our office. And this is the kind of medicine and faith intermingled that you learn at someone's knee, one-on-one. You don't learn it in a class. It needs to be heart-searching, and then do a little heart searching, lots of prayer, and then figure out how can we take the best of medicine and use it in the proper way to come up with a good result in someone's health. And it takes a lot of thinking out of the box, because there are many situations that there isn't a clear path. It's not, just A to B, and you do it and you got it. It's not like a cake mix. So a lot of times we have to really think things through and pray a lot before we come up with a treatment plan. And that's exciting to me, because it's someplace that most people don't go, and I think it's a privilege to be able to go there. All right, shall we wrap this?
Let's give Dr. Anderson